Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Nice to see you guys. So today, I'm going to talk about manas. So we're switching gears now. Before we were doing empathy, right? We did a lot of classes on empathy. And now I'm going to start getting a little bit technical and teaching you about the parts of the mind. So in Vedic Psychology, there's 4 parts of the mind. And the first one I'm going to talk about is manas. Okay? So we're going to do an exercise called flash feelings. Then I'm going to describe what is manas, and then I'm going to show you manas in action, how manas looks, so you can identify it in yourself. And then I'll open it up for questions. Okay? So let's start with this exercise. If you have a paper and a pen, that would be good. And the exercise is quick. It's going to be quick. If you don't have that and you want to write your answers on your device, you know, if you have a laptop or phone, you can write the answers there. And if you have your feelings wheel, that might help. But you might be able to just do it without the feelings wheel too. Okay? So I'm going to show you a series of images. And for each one, just notice your initial reaction. Very quick. What do you feel? And then write the feeling down. And there'll be 10 total. So you can already put on your page 1 through 10. And then get ready really quick to just write it down. This is not like a deep, contemplative, reflective exercise. Okay? It's just a quick reaction exercise, which is different. Remember before I was doing take 20 to a tune and we were like meditating on what's you're feeling? This is a different activity now. It's a real quick one. Okay? I just want to say before we start, the difference between feelings and thoughts, okay? So feelings are not thoughts, and very often people get that confused. You know, I'll ask my client, you know, so how are you feeling? And they'll tell me what they're thinking. And I'll say, oh, that's a thought, but what's the feeling related to that? And they'll tell me another thought, you know? So I'm just going to clarify here. A lot of you have heard me talking about feelings. We've been practicing feelings, but still it's our nature to talk about our thought. So here's some examples of thoughts. Like, he's doing something dangerous. Or, I'm not going to the party. Or that looks, you know, tasty. Or, I feel that he's angry with me, but that's not a feeling. You think he's angry with you. Or, she's so rude. Or, this room is very hot. Those are all thoughts. Okay? And a thought is an idea or an opinion that's produced by thinking. Okay, and so it occurs very suddenly in your mind, but that's different than a feeling. But your feelings and your thoughts, they're very closely related, and that's probably why we get them mixed up sometimes, right? So I'm just going to show one example here. The thought is, he's doing something dangerous. The feeling, like a lot of times clients will say that to me, for example, and then I'll say, are you feeling fearful? Are you scared that he's doing something dangerous, you know? Yes, fearful. Okay, that's your feeling. You know, so for each one of these, there's a feeling or more than one feeling related to the thought. Okay? So I'm just trying to like refresh your memory on feelings because we're about to do this exercise and I don't want you to write all your thoughts down. Okay? So I'll just show you, for example, I'm not going to the party, so I would guess, are you feeling tired? And then maybe the person would say, no, I'm not tired. I don't want to go because it's too far away. I feel inconvenienced. Okay, I understand. That looks tasty. Are you hungry? You know, that could be a feeling, right? I feel that he's angry at me. Oh, are you feeling worried about that? That he's angry at you? No, I'm angry at him too. Okay, you're feeling angry about that. Okay, that's the feeling. She's so rude. Are you feeling hurt by that? Or this room is very hot. Are you feeling uncomfortable? Okay? So that's kind of the difference between thoughts and feelings. Feelings are much more subtle. They're harder to grab. Thoughts are easier. Okay? So a feeling is an emotional state or an emotional reaction. Okay? So developing your feelings vocabulary, that's what we've been working on, and we're going to continue with that. Learning to recognize your own feelings can help you to begin to empathize with other people's feelings. So if you're not in touch with your own feelings, and I'm asking you, how do you feel, and you tell me how you think, you know, that's a sign that you have to practice that. It's a muscle, you know, practice figuring out what your feelings are, if you're interested in learning how to improve your empathy. And once you're good at understanding your own feelings, identifying and understanding your own feelings, then you can see how the other person might feel. Okay? So this is why I keep harping on the feelings. All these roads are kind of leading back to the same point of this empathy. Okay? So the ability to identify your own feelings is critical in developing emotional intelligence, which is, empathy is a big part of emotional intelligence. Did this thing just go off? No? Good? Okay. So I asked you, I kind of wrote a message a few hours ago about using your feelings wheel, about bringing it to the class and having it ready to go, and I sent one. So if you have one, that's great. If you don't have one, you can even just Google one and download one, but you should have it on your device if you're in one of our WhatsApp groups. So the benefits I want to tell you, because sometimes if somebody tells you to do something and you don't really know why, and you're just kind of going along with it, it's easy to drop it, to not use it. But there's a lot of benefits to using it, so I wanted to share some so you know kind of the method to the madness here. So one is that you have an increased awareness of your feelings. Then you can talk about how you feel with clarity. Sometimes you don't really know how you feel, but there's something that you just feel upset or uncomfortable. But you can talk about it with a lot of clarity if you know what the feeling is. Then you can identify and talk about it. And the benefit of that is that then you take responsibility for your feelings instead of blaming the other person. Sometimes we don't even mean to blame the other person. We really think it's their fault. We don't realize that we have feelings that we're wanting them to take care of for us, you know? So once we take care of our feelings, we identify and take responsibility for our feelings, then we can accept the other person with their feelings. Because we realize, okay, I'm feeling really uncomfortable right now. And then we realize, okay, if the other person's uncomfortable, that's okay, because I've accepted my own uncomfortability, you know? Then it's easier to accept the other person as they are, instead of saying, are you mad at me? Do you love me? Why aren't you talking to me? What's going on? If they're uncomfortable like that, and they're your partner, for example, you can get very upset if you're not comfortable with your own uncomfortableness. You know what I mean? So this is a big benefit. So basically, this helps you to avoid conflict, you know, when you take care of your own feelings, and it also helps you resolve conflict. So one, you can avoid it, but if it's unavoidable and you're in a conflict, and if you own your own feelings, then you end up making statements that we call I statements, like, I feel angry at you, instead of, you're a jerk, right? If you say, you're a jerk, that's much harder to hear than saying, I feel very angry. That's also scary to hear when somebody says that, but at least they're owning that they're angry. You know, and then they might tell you why they're angry, but at least they're taking responsibility for their feelings. So when you do that, and if the other person's able to do that too, and say, well, I feel scared, or I feel angry too, then you can talk about it and you can move past difficult feelings more easily. But it all starts with identifying. First of all, believing that there's a reason why you should use a feelings wheel, you know, to identify. And then developing your feelings vocabulary, using it regularly and identifying how you feel, even if you're not triggered. Even if you just wake up in the morning and look at the feelings wheel and go, what feeling on here am I feeling right now? You know, that's helpful. There's always feelings. It's just a matter of sometimes they're so subtle that you need to be able to focus on it more regularly to identify what that subtle feeling is. And then it helps build healthier relationships, which I think all of us want, you know? We want to have healthy, happy relationships with whoever we have in our life. And by identifying our feelings, taking responsibility for them, meaning, oh, this is my feeling, and I'm going to do what I need to do to take care of it and not put it on the other person to take care of it for me. So there's a lot of benefits to using the feelings wheel. Okay, so ready, guys, for our flash feelings exercise? Okay, here we go. So I'm going to flash you 10 different pictures and just write down quickly a feeling for each one. Ready? Here we go. How do you feel when you see this picture? I'm just going to count to 10 and switch to the next one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How do you feel when you see this chocolate cake? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. How do you feel when you see this dog with only 2 legs? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Babaji. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Beach. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Scary skull. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A laughing donkey. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A woman on top of a mountain, a peak of a mountain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. This is a little kid hiding from, looks like a fist, a man's fist. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. A man standing on a board, looking like in the Grand Canyon or something. It looks like there's thousands of feet of nothingness below him. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And a snake's big fangs about to bite. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, good job, you guys. So, how did you do? So look at the 10 feeling words you wrote down. And you can label each feeling word as a positive feeling or a negative feeling. Okay? All positive feelings are likes, and all the negative feelings are dislikes. Just quickly categorize. You can just quickly put L for like and D for dislike, or P for positive and N for negative. Just analyze your feeling. Does anybody need more time? Got it? Okay. So, welcome to your manas. That was an exercise that gave you an inside look at manas. This is what manas does all day long. So that was just an experience for you, just a real quick, that is what manas is doing all day long. And every picture that you saw, you had an automatic feeling. All your feelings fit into one of two categories, like or dislike. And that's how your manas is functioning, even like if you're not noticing it. You know, there's always something coming in to manas, and manas is always reacting. Excuse me. So manas runs on a binary system of like and dislike. Everything is like and dislike. We may not be aware of that, but the better you get at your feelings vocabulary and at awareness of your feelings, you'll notice it. And when you start noticing it, it's out of control. It's funny, actually. When you watch it, you're like, oh my God, this thing won't shut off. It will not stop. It's like, don't like that. Oh, like when I first started learning Vedic psychology, I was also teaching it to my clients in Florida. There are children, and teenagers at the hospital. But first I had to experience it myself. So I was watching my own likes and dislikes, and I'm like, this is ridiculous. It's just non-stop. Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, I like that. Oh, I don't like that. All day long, So when you focus just on manas, it's helpful to see, wow, I am constantly reacting, It's almost like a brainstem or something. It's just reactionary. There's no thought that goes into this. Just like, dislike, like, dislike, like, dislike, So I think Facebook was very smart to create these like thumbs up and thumbs down, right? Because our mind naturally does that. We can't help it. That's just what it does. Okay, so what is manas? It's our emotional mind. Okay? All emotions fit into all of our feelings. From the feelings wheel, you can put into the like or the dislike. Anytime you're feeling a feeling, you know that it's pretty much manas. You know manas is active. When you're feeling a feeling, you're like, oh, that's my manas. Okay? It's your emotional mind. And it's one of 4 parts of the mind. So I'm going to use the time, over these next few weeks and months to explain the parts of the mind to you. And then we're going to circle back at another point later and come back and go more deeply into empathy once you understand your parts of the mind. Okay? So manas is the emotional mind. That's what we're going to focus on for a while. It's not going to be one class. I'm going to kind of go over it until we practice some things and see it in our own life. Chitta is our subconscious mind. That's where our samskaras are. I'm going to teach that at some point later after we get done with manas. Ahankara is our sense of identity or our sense of I and my. And buddhi is our intelligence or our awareness. So I might mention one of these just to explain something, but I'm not going to go in depth into these other parts of the mind until I teach them separately. But I might, in passing, say something about one of the parts. That's why I'm just introducing them really quickly here, what they are. Okay, this is an important point. Manas is not the brain. Okay, so the brain is our hardware, and the manas is the software. Okay, which means when we die, the brain dies. You've heard of people being like brain dead. The brain is just like this material matter that dies with the body. But the manas doesn't die. It goes with your subtle body to the next life, along with the other parts of the mind, the 4 other parts. Okay? So manas is like a rowdy monkey. It has no self-discipline. It has no self-control. It just spontaneously reacts on whatever thoughts and feelings are coming into the mind. Okay, so that's why I put these monkeys, because we have a lot of monkeys in Vrindavan, and whenever I see them, it makes me laugh because it reminds me of manas. Just does whatever it wants. And manas is also like a baby. Babies do whatever they want, right? They don't think of others' feelings. They cry whenever they want. They throw food. They fart, right? Babies fart all the time. They don't care. They have anger outbursts. They throw toys when they get older, and they even throw up on you. I've had a baby throw up on my head before. I'm like, oh my gosh, right? So it's like a baby. There's no deliberation. There's no thinking about, is this a good idea or not? It just does whatever its instinct is, whatever it's naturally wired to do. Okay? So manas lacks the ability to control, to deliberate, to show remorse. So for example, kids, so I showed babies. Now a little bit older, you look at kids. Kids are very picky, They don't care. They're just dislike, and they don't care. They're not like, I think that would be rude, to tell my mom who just cooked this whole meal for me and she didn't sleep at all because I kept her up all night. I think it'd be rude to tell her I don't like that meal. The kid will just throw it in your face. They don't care. Right? That's manas. Adults do that sometimes too, but it's funnier to see a kid doing it, right? The kids are also very demanding. They don't have empathy, They're not thinking, I would feel bad to ask you to, drive me, an hour to my friend's house. I wouldn't, after working all day, they wouldn't feel bad about that. They're just like, you serve me, They never say thank you, right? They're just like, give me. You can train them. You should be like, Johnny, you should go say thank you. And they're like, no. And then you're like, you should really go say thank you. And then they'll go up and go, thank you. Do they feel anything? They don't feel thank you. They're being pushed by the parent. They're not feeling, wow, that was so nice of you to invite me to the birthday party and give me like a favor bag. They don't feel like that, Children also hit. They kick, they scream. I'm shocked. I don't have kids, but I have 3 sisters. They all have kids. And when I come home and watch and see how these kids treat my sisters, I'm like, oh my God, they're like saints. There's so much patience, patience. I mean, I know they love their kids, but it can be very trying when kids hit and scream and kick, at you, or whatever. They say mean things too. They say they have no filter. That's the other thing. Manas has no filter. So the kid will be like, oh, and they'll be like, that shirt doesn't look good on you. You look horrible in that. Or they'll be like, didn't you wear that yesterday too? And you're like, oh. Or they'll say something like really embarrassing in front of like you spend personal time with them, but then you're like in a professional setting, and they'll say like, oh, she said she didn't like you. And you're like, oh, no. Manas, no censor, no filter, no boundaries, no control. They don't care how their words or behavior make you feel, and they also say whatever comes to their mind. And what I think is interesting is that, kids and babies are like that, and same with at the end of life. A lot of people, if you have like a senior parent, I think they get to the point in their life either where they're getting some dementia, so they don't care, or they don't remember, or they just don't care. They're done. They're like, they've been through everything, and they're not trying to impress anyone. And they also say things sometimes with no filter, So that's interesting. But anyway, this is the manas in action, okay? So here's some more. An emotionally immature adult will act on their feelings just like I described a baby or a monkey or a child. That's how you can tell that somebody hasn't done a lot of work on themselves at an emotional level yet. And that's not their fault. You know, they probably don't even know that there is something called manas, or they need to do emotional work. And actually the problem starts with the parents. The parents should be skillful, right, in teaching the kids. So we don't want to point fingers or blame anybody who's an adult who's acting like this. You know, the idea would be to have compassion and say, that's sad. They probably didn't get what they needed from their parents, you know. So I would say the average adult's emotional age is 7 years old. This is based on 15 years of being a psychotherapist. That's what I see. I may be jaded. I mean, I may be like biased because, I don't know, that's the people I've seen. But I would say, like, I've also worked with kids as a psychologist, and when I see a 7-year-old kid emotionally and most adults, it's about the same. But Babaji is very generous, and I think he says 12 years. I'm like, wow, 12? So I don't want to quote him on this. This is my work experience, 15 years as a psychologist or therapist. That's what I think. But if a child did not have skilled parents who knew how to nurture their feelings, how to teach them about their feelings, how to identify their feelings, how are they going to be skillful at this? So as an adult, they're just going to act spontaneously, just like the monkey or the child, and they're going to act spontaneously on their thoughts and the feelings. So what they'll struggle with as an adult is deliberating upon their behaviors. Like, is this a good idea that I just slap that person in the face? Was that a good idea? Like, they're not going to think that. They're just going to get angry and slap, They also struggle with empathy, and they struggle with remorse, Empathy, so in the ideal world, the parents are going to teach you about your feelings, and they're going to have empathy for you. And when you experience the parents having empathy for you, then you naturally start having empathy for other people. But if a parent is harsh to you and rude, then you shut down too, and you're going to be harsh and rude usually to your pet or to your younger brother or sister, someone smaller than you, So, and they also have trouble controlling their strong feelings because the parents didn't control their own strong feelings, and they didn't teach their kids how to control their strong feelings, So if we aren't aware of our feelings and we don't know how to control our manas, we end up in a lot of relationship issues and a lot of emotional immaturity. So some examples would be disharmony among people, fighting, gossiping, criticizing, excluding people, lying, procrastinating, yelling, crying. These are all very childish behaviors, and some of you have kids and you know that. And some of you are laughing when I'm describing like children and babies, but if you think about yourself in some instances, or maybe someone you can be like, oh wow, they're actually not that different than a 7-year-old, So this is evidence that what I call like the moody manas is in charge. Out of the 4 parts of the mind, this is how you can tell manas is in charge. Manas in action. These 2 ladies are like fighting. Remember I told you guys that story when I pulled my sister's hair? I was 12 then, but okay. So it doesn't have to be like this. That's the good news, It's like a spotlight on manas, but that's just manas like uncontrolled, unmanaged, and unexamined. That's just the raw manas, if we know nothing about it and we've done nothing about it, okay? But manas, in its own right, before all this other drama comes out and all these emotions and feelings, manas is made of sattva guna, which is shocking. When I learned that, I'm like, what? It doesn't seem like that, but it is. Manas is made out of sattva guna, and sattva is peaceful. The natural state of sattva is, the natural state of manas is peaceful. So if you look at this lake, that's what the mind is like. It's very hard to believe that because, as we just experienced, there's all these thoughts and all these feelings all the time, But manas is actually like a blank movie screen. Just like, a peaceful lake, a blank movie screen. So then what is happening is that all of our feelings are getting projected onto this screen of manas all the time. So you can just think of it like a movie screen. When I think of manas in my own head, I'm like, okay, it's just a screen, and that's where I can see all the feelings that are getting thrown up on there. We can't control our thoughts and feelings, right? We don't know like what our next feeling is going to be or our next thought's going to be. We can't control that because we don't know what it is. But when it comes, the part we have control over is how we respond to it. That means we have to increase our awareness of the feelings. And then we see a feeling and we're like, oh, how am I going to respond to that? Am I going to act like manas or like this crazy monkey or baby and just throw and kick and scream? Or am I going to respond in a way where I slow myself down and make a decision that I wouldn't be, would not have bad consequences or I'd feel regretful about, right? So we can decide how we want to respond to these feelings and thoughts that are constantly coming onto manas. Okay, so here's option one. We can react. This is one choice we could make and just say, you know what, this is too hard. Screw it, I'm just going to react. So that means how that goes is we become absorbed in our thoughts and our feelings, and we just react. Just probably like what we're already doing. But it's kind of like watching a captivating movie, When you go to a movie and you get absorbed in a really, really good movie, see, look at these people's faces. They're like, oh my God, so it looks really scary. Something scary is happening, right? But imagine they're at the movie theater and something happens, like it happens in India all the time, like the electricity goes out, and so the movie's off. All of a sudden the movie screen is off. Then they're going to stop being scared and they'll be like, hey, can you pass a drink? And anyway, how are you? It's a little warm in here. Let's turn the air conditioner on. And I feel like dinner, do you? So they're reacting like really strongly, right? To basically a movie, And then then when you turn the movie off, then there's no reaction. Then it just go back to normal. So we have to realize that we're doing that all day long to the things that are getting projected onto our manas. We take it so seriously. We don't realize that that's actually just feelings and thoughts which are not us and which are oftentimes not the reality, because those feelings and thoughts are not clean how they're coming. They're coming through the filter of our samskaras. I'll get into that at another time, but they're not like, that's my full-time job, helping people see their samskaras and see how you're not seeing it clearly. You're seeing it through a very jaded lens, and that's why you're reacting so strongly. It's not what's happening, So I don't know if you've ever been to a movie theater and you've just watched the people's faces, but not the movie. And because I'm a psychologist, I like to observe people a lot, So I never quit my daytime job. Even if at the airport, I like to watch the people, or at the movie theater, I like to watch how people are reacting to things and responding, right? So I think it's very funny to look at the faces because they're so engrossed in the movie, So it's the same idea that's how our faces look, basically, internally, with all the stuff going on in our manas. So that's option one, react. Just get completely absorbed in our thoughts and feelings and react. So this is the response of an uncontrolled mind or manas. All these different things, feelings and thoughts are going onto the screen. So they get projected onto the screen of manas, we identify with them, and then we react. And it's in a nanosecond. It happens so fast. So fast. So option two is we could observe. We could observe the thoughts and feelings. We could deliberate on them, and then we could act. And there's a nice quote from Babaji here saying that feelings are just different states of mind. The self, which is beyond mind, actually does not experience any of these things. Self, or Atma, remains in its own steady state. It's just the mind which fluctuates. So option two is a nice concept, right? When you hear that from Babaji and you see the sunset and it's so peaceful, but then it's like, it takes a very strong buddhi, which is your intelligence, to calmly observe and deliberate and then act on something when you're very angry or you're very scared or you're very sad. It takes a lot to actually be like, those are just my thoughts and feelings. That's not me, no problem, So if you think of a time when you've had a very, very strong feeling and you didn't act on it, that's extremely difficult to do, and it takes a lot of strength of the intelligence to do that, to change that. And every time we act on something, just say, like for me, some of you guys know I have a fear of needles. I really do not like needles. So I see them and I start shaking and I start sweating and I even start crying sometimes, right? I have a big fear of them. So I'm working on that fear. I've been working on that. But it takes a lot of strength to be like, oh, I'm fine. Yeah, just jab the needle in my arm. I'm like, to me, that takes a lot of strength to just overcome it. So every time I act on the old way, the shaking and the fear and the crying, I'm reinforcing that behavior, that samskara, and I'm making it stronger, So once I understood that, then I try to use my intelligence and say, okay, I don't want to make that one stronger. I'm trying to make that one weaker. Don't act on it. Don't feed it. Don't. Okay, breathe. Just, okay, I won't look at it, but put it in. I won't shake and cry, So it takes a lot of strength. It's like bringing your mind to the gym and lifting weights to, it's hard to do. But that's the work of the Vedic psychology at the level of manas. Observing. First you have to identify the strong feeling. Then you have to observe it. And you have to try to figure out how to be calm and deliberate and act. And there's different techniques I do myself and I help my clients with on how to press the calm button so you don't act. Okay? But one of the questions is, how is it even possible to observe and deliberate your mind when these feelings are so powerful and they're bombarding you? I mean, look at this guy. That's how it feels sometimes when powerful feelings are coming, right? So it's a good point. So I'm just going to show a little technical thing. It may be a lot for some of you, so I'll continue to explain this over many lectures. So if you don't get it this first time, don't worry. Okay? So manas contains our thoughts and our feelings. Okay? A thought. Remember the thought I already gave? He's doing something dangerous. Feeling fear. That just automatically comes into manas. So our thoughts drive our feeling. They're related. Okay? That part I think I already talked about. The next part is our feelings drive our behavior. Okay? So the thought is he's doing something dangerous. The manas, the S is missing, it's dangling down there. Anyway, that's manas. Manas. So this is the manas level. Thought drives feeling. Then the next part is the feeling makes us act. And like I said, this happens in a nanosecond. So ahankara is the thing that gives us the agency to act. Ahankara, I could probably write a whole book just on ahankara. So I'm just going to mention right now the one point. It gives us the agency to act. In other words, manas on its own is just like thoughts and feelings. It's not acting. It's just a blank movie screen. I mean, you don't see a blank movie screen running around, right? It's just there. It's sattvic. It's peaceful. And our thoughts and feelings are getting thrown on there and making it, get all jumbled up. But there's no action. Then ahankara identifies with the thoughts and feelings and makes us act. Okay? So then the behavior is some reaction. Some reaction. So in this one, just say my friend, and I'm like, oh, he's doing something dangerous. Just say he said, I'm going to climb K2 or some really huge mountain. I'd be like, that's dangerous. How do I feel? I feel very fearful. And then I'd be like, listen, dude, you should not climb K2. You've got to stop that. I cancel your trip. I don't think you should do that. Why? Because I'm scared. Okay? So you see, this is subtle, but that's me trying to tell him to stop so I can feel peaceful. You see what I mean? That's not taking responsibility for my feelings. Okay? Now it's getting a little messy, but you already know the first kind of 3 parts. I'm just putting an X through the behavior, the reaction. You see the red X? That's called a reaction, the behavior. I'm going to tell him to stop. Why? Because I didn't manage my feelings of feeling scared. I want him to stop so I can feel peaceful. That doesn't work, and that's why a lot of fights happen with people. They feel controlled. They feel criticized. They feel like misunderstood. You're being unempathetic, So if you use the buddhi, so you see the green, the buddhi there? The eye is dangling down again because I did it in Canva and now PowerPoint crunched it. But the buddhi short circuits the ahankara, okay? If the buddhi is strong enough, the buddhi is like, listen, ahankara, I am not listening to you. I'm running the show and I am going to deliberate. I'm going to deliberate and I'm going to make a deliberate action. Once I deliberate, I'm going to acknowledge and nurture my own feelings. I feel scared. This guy doesn't feel scared for climbing K2. It's his life. He's my friend. He's not my son. He's not my 12-year-old son who needs me to guide him. He wants to climb K2. That's his life. He probably is an adventurous person. Why is it my job to tell him what he can and can't do? So that now that I realize, oh, those are my feelings of fear, now I need to figure out how can I calm myself down? What can I do to calm myself down? Maybe do some meditation, do some breathing, breathe some essential oils, right? I have to take care of my feeling, nurture my inner child, make a session with my therapist or something, whatever I need to talk to a good friend, something to calm my feelings down. So do you see how that works? Your buddhi, your intelligence, is what controls your behavior. Okay? But where are these feelings coming from? I said that they're on the screen of manas, but where are they coming from? They come from 2 places. Externally, things kind of come in through your senses, and then internally, things are coming up onto the screen of manas. So So the external stimuli, so our feelings come as a reaction to the input from our 5 senses. So we touch something, oh, that's hot, or we taste something, oh, that tastes good or bad. We hear something, I like it, I don't like it. We see something, that's beautiful, that's ugly. Or we smell something, oh, disgusting, or ooh, that's not nice. So all these things are constantly coming in through our five senses, you know, and then our manas is reacting. So, and each of our senses has its own set of likes and dislikes, which is also interesting. You can do an analysis of that on its own, but that's just a small point for now, just to show how much is going on with the manas, you know. And it only takes one of these senses to generate all kinds of feelings. You know, have you ever smelled something really like putrid, like something rotten? It's like, oh, it smells so disgusting. It can just like, that's why I always like, you know, rose essential oil. I always like nice smells, so I'm very sensitive to smell. So if there's a bad smell, I'm like, oh, it's just, I really don't like bad smells. So, and it can generate feelings, you know, you feel disgusted or uncomfortable, or sometimes smells can even make you feel angry, you know, or so. Anyway, but so they generate feelings by smelling something, for example. So let's do our sense of sight, okay, as an example. So you see something with your eyes. You see a guy and he's driving and texting. Probably a lot of you have seen that before. I just had that experience. You know, I was just away for a couple weeks on vacation, and when I came back on Monday, the taxi driver the whole way from the Delhi airport to here was texting, like this. I'm like, oh my God. You know, I'm like, how is this happen? And the last guy was sleeping. We were like going off the road, and this guy was texting. Anyway, so you have a certain set of feelings when the person, you know, is driving you, bombing down the road, and texting. So how would you feel if you saw this guy on the road next to you? Not my story, in the taxi in the back seat, you know, but this guy, just say he's next to you, and you're driving, and he's texting. Maybe angry, or maybe scared, right? Because he could hit you, huh? Both. Yeah, because he could hit you, right? So you're going to feel something. You're not going to be like, oh, that's fine, and feel neutral. There's going to be a feeling there, and probably it's not going to be happy. Unless it's like, you know, a new boyfriend and he's like texting you or something. Then you might be like, oh. But manas automatically categorizes your negative feelings as dislike, right? So you feel angry, you feel scared, and dislike, and it happens so fast. That's just what it does. So then look what happens. Road rage. Right? We spontaneously act upon these feelings of dislike without deliberating. We're just like, F you. Like one time I was in Los Angeles and the guy had a gun. He got into road rage and I saw him whip a gun out. And I'm like, oh my God. It was 8 lanes of traffic, you know? And he was so mad that somebody cut him off that I saw a gun hanging out the window. And where I at least grew up, I grew up like in a village almost, you know, it was very like simple and pure and like sattvic. I'd never even seen a gun before actually. And he whipped the gun out, and he was pointing at the car, and he cursing and yelling like this guy. I'm like, that's manas, total manas, right? There's no buddhi involved at all. So manas is emotionally immature. That's kind of a nutshell of manas. So then there's also internal stimuli, right? So that was external. The example was you see something, but you can look at that example for all your 5 senses if you want to do an analysis of your own manas and see how you respond to things, you know? You can look at each of your senses and see. But internal stimuli comes from our samskaras. And our samskaras are located in our chitta. That's another part of the mind that we'll get into at another point. And this is just an example, like all these pictures, you know? Our samskaras are memories. And those memories hold all of our thoughts about that memory, all of our feelings about that memory, and everything related to our 5 senses. If you've had a very intense experience, you might even remember the smell, even if it happened 20 years ago or 50 years ago, right? So the more emotionally intense the experience, and Babaji calls it the weightage, it's heavier, the more emotionally intense, right? And so you can remember the thing the person was wearing. It could have been 20 years ago. You can remember what the shirt they were wearing, you know, if it's emotionally intense. And so these are these internal stimuli, these samskaras hiding basically in our kind of subconscious mind, so we're not aware of them. And then they pop up, and we're not even aware they've popped up, but all of a sudden we're feeling really emotional, and we think it's the other person. That's how samskaras work. Those samskaras come up on the screen of manas because something similar happened that triggered that samskara to come up. But we're not like, oh yeah, I remember 20 years ago, it was that woman, that flight attendant who was rude to me. We're not thinking that. What we're thinking is, I can't believe you just said that to me. You are so rude. And all of the unprocessed feelings and thoughts related to the event that happened a long time ago gets projected onto our screen of manas and then onto that person. They're a screen for us too. They're another screen for us. They're almost like a blank screen. In other words, we can't really see the other person. When we're triggered, which is, emotionally charged up about something, you can't see the other person. So all your stuff goes on them and you think they're like that, So this is the internal stimuli, the samskaras. So I have a story I'm going to tell, but I'm going to hold off till next week, I think, to tell it, because I want to kind of slow it down and leave time for questions. And we have, I think, about maybe 10 minutes or so. So let me open it up and see if anybody has questions about manas, about what I shared about manas today.
You said manas is a part of mind, and in this case, what is the relation between mind and subtle body?
And?
Subtle body.
Mind is part of the subtle body.
Mind is part of subtle body. And what are other components of subtle body?
There's this lecture today is about mind. You and how manas relates to you and changes in your life. So if you want to ask philosophical questions, I think it's better to ask Babaji. This is about how your manas, your likes and dislikes, this is, maybe I should have said at the beginning, but when I teach these points, I'm giving minimal information so you can take it and apply it to yourself and make changes. So I don't know how knowing that answer would help you make changes in your life.
Okay, a second question, if I may. Actors on the stages, they are using their manas essentially, right, or not?
And what way do you think they're using the manas? Your question is, are actresses on the stage using manas? How do you think that they would be using manas? What do you mean?
I mean that the action which we see in theater, as you talked about cinema, is interesting only because their manas is in action.
Because they're kind of emotional, you're saying?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Because they're expressing emotions, but it takes their buddhi, their intelligence, to basically act, because they're not really so manas is like uncontrolled feelings, right? But they're actually making the feelings, make it look like they're real feelings, but they're not. A lot of times they're acting. So that's like a lot of buddhi. They're using their buddhi to make feelings come and make us all believe that those are the real feelings. Somebody who just was manas, would not be a very good actress, because they'd be like, what? Memorize these lines? Forget it. I don't want to memorize the lines. That's no fun. That'd be manas. Or they would say their line and just say the other person didn't say the right line back. They'd be like, you're the worst. You got to get better at this. What is your problem? It's like uncensored. Manas has no filter, and it's usually a lot of negative things. So they're using the feelings, but it's not really their real feelings. They're using the buddhi mostly. Good actresses have very good intelligence, right? They have good memory. That will come later when we get into buddhi. But it's a good question to try to understand manas in your life or manas in someone else's life. That's what I'm trying to help you see with these stories and the things I've shared. Any other questions, Krishnada?
Yeah, I was having one question about the exercise, that I was forced in the exercise to feel, but it's not like I see and immediately I feel something. I just observe, and then I was, okay, the exercise is about feel, what do I feel with that? But is that okay? It's just because it's the exercise, or there is something else happening?
What's the question?
The question is, if something else happening, for example, in this exercise, it was showing us image, giving us 10, and we have to feel. But in my case, I feel forced to feel. It's not like the image bring me something immediately. Just I observe, and then I take. Like, it takes time for me. So I was wondering if this space of time between the image and the feeling, maybe involve thoughts in the process or something like that. I don't know.
This is a good question. So that might happen to a lot of people, and sometimes actually when I'm in session with clients, I'll say, how do you feel? And they'll be like, I don't feel anything. There's no feeling. So this is lack of practice. The feeling comes within a second. 10 seconds is a long time. So the feeling comes as soon as the thought comes. As soon as you see it, you're having a feeling. But it's our awareness that's the problem, the awareness of the feeling. So to the extent that our mother did not attune to us, going back to those lectures on attunement, to the extent that our mother did not attune to our feelings, is to the extent that we're not attuned to our feelings, but they're there. So we don't have that practice. We don't have that mechanism there, you know? So as you practice, you'll see that it comes so fast. As soon as you see it, it's like, oh, you'll feel it. It feels forced because that means you don't have that samskara of feeling, and having somebody say, oh, it looks like you're feeling really scared, you're feeling really sad. If mom did that at the beginning for you, you would be like, tense, why is she dragging this thing out? So it's just a matter of practicing now and creating a new samskara where you're not forcing yourself to feel, where you're just using your awareness and you're looking at what the feeling is. It's there. It's just a practice of looking in to feel it. Okay? Kamala.
Because in the 10 feelings I could relate, but on the 9th, when I saw the man feast and the girl in the corner, that I was completely unable to figure out. So maybe actually I was totally blank.
Okay, that's a good question. So if that happens, it's like, wait a minute, I felt some and I felt them quickly, but then there's one I just couldn't feel. Oftentimes that's a hint. I'm not saying I know your story, your personal story, but it's a hint that there might be a samskara there, and that there's some tamas covering that, blocking that, because it's too painful to feel. I don't know if that resonates with you, but that's actually usually what happens. It's one thing if you're like, but I noticed there's a gap for all 10. That's one thing. And that means that mom wasn't like attuning and helping you feel your feelings and learn identify and learn what they are. But if there's, wait a minute, but I was feeling all this stuff, but then this one that there was nothing, that's a sign that there's a samskara there, and it was probably too painful to feel what that thing was. And so there's like, how I look at it, like tamas covering it, you know, because you don't want to go there. Yeah. The defense mechanism.
Yeah, so then this mechanism of tamas covering the emotion is like a kind of, let's say, protecting or...
Yeah, it's a protection.
It's a
and it happened probably a long time ago.
Okay.
Whatever that event was was too painful, then the tamas like kind of compassionately covered it, so you don't have to go around feeling that.
Oh, okay.
But that's a sign if anybody else had that happen. Try to see if there's some memory, some samskara that you can think of in your childhood that related to that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else? Any other? I can't see on Zoom. I only see my screen. Are there any questions on Zoom? Bhadra? Okay. Go ahead, Bhadra. I can't see you. I'm sorry. I can only see my screen.
My question is, I observe myself that when I have this very strong feeling or something, and now I discover it, but at the beginning it was like a automatic mechanism of suppressing the feeling. So I want to understand, where does this happen? Is it mana suppressing it, or is it buddhi, or who is the one who is in charge of suppressing the feeling when I could not deal with it?
Let's leave that until we get to the other parts of the mind. It's not manas, I'll tell you that much. I don't want to introduce concepts about the other parts of the mind right now because I introduced a lot today. So just know that it's not manas, because manas can't do that. Manas is just like feelings coming on a blank screen. That's pretty much it. And then ahankara, we act. So it's one of the other three parts.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And then there's Keshav Priya.
Okay.
Keshava Priyaji.
And Ananga Manjari too.
Yes, Haribol, Joshika.
Haribol.
I was wondering whether neurodivergent people have more trouble identifying with their feelings, or is it only due to being covered by tamas?
There's a lot of different reasons why people would have problems identifying their feelings. So That's as much as I can say. Unless you have a specific question about, I mean, a whole category of people is a lot to answer.
Yeah, it's just because we are dealing with autism a lot at home, and I was wondering about that.
So autism, yes, that's difficult to identify their feelings. They have a problem with them, feeling, with regulating their feelings, and that's because they can't identify. I mean, there's many reasons why, but one of them is they can't identify what their feeling is. And they also don't know how they affect other people, So yeah, that would be a very good thing. I used to work with autistic children, and I would help them identify their feelings, get the feelings wheel out, and help them see what their feeling is and talk about it. Sometimes it's easier for them to visually see it instead of a feelings wheel with words, to have a more simplified one with pictures of faces and teach them about facial recognition, what that person's feeling, and what are you feeling, and using a mirror, showing them their face.
Yes, I think the feelings wheel might be a big help
Yeah.
here. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure. Anangamanjari?
Yes, my question is about neutral feeling.
I can't hear
Feeling neutral, because so manas is discriminating things between raga and dvesha, like or dislike. But what about this feeling like neutral? Does it really exist, or is it kind of a trick of manas to deny something, or where put this feeling of being neutral? For example, in those pictures that you showed us, first of all, I could realize that the feelings I had were like very limited in terms of. I was not able to identify really clearly each feelings, first of all, and second, for some of the pics, I was just feeling neutral.
You were just...
I was just feeling neutral.
Neutral. Okay, so it's possible, I think, to feel neutral, but I think that'd be for maybe somebody who's like in a very high state of sattva, to not really be attached to their feelings, maybe beyond sattva. But otherwise, if it's neutral, and you might feel neutral about this table or something, you might not, this is like, maybe not this table, but a table. You're at the airport and there's like a table there. You might feel neutral, but in general, there's like or dislike for everything, but the like on a scale of 1 to 10 might be like 1. So you're not feeling strongly about it. So you think it's neutral because we haven't developed the refined awareness of the feeling. You know what I mean? So sometimes we're not feeling, because really it is kind of almost neutral, like 1 out of 10. And 10 is like very strong feeling of like 1 or 0.5 or something. And a lot of times it's because our mother didn't attune to us and help us identify and feel our feelings. And then the third category is that we have some trauma around the feeling. There's some trauma, Or another category could be that we're in tamas not because of trauma, but we're in tamas, we're depressed. And if you're depressed, everything's muted, everything's dull, everything's gray, so you're just not feeling as much. There's the other extreme, when you're overly feeling for different kind of mental health issues, when you overly feel things. So we have to see what the reason is, but it's a good question. Is there something actually that you would feel neutral about, Yes, Krishna Das. Is there anybody else on the Vilas? No? Okay. Krishna Das.
Yeah, related to that particular part is like I wanted to know if it's possible to combine feelings. Like what you feel is a combined feeling.
Yeah,
it's not like a pure compassion. It's like a pity compassion with something else.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was saying. Like just from one sense, like if you see one thing, you could feel 10 feelings. You could feel like overwhelmed and excited and nervous and scared and like a whole mix of things. Yeah, and the more you practice it, the more you'll start seeing like, ooh, wow, that's interesting. I feel this and that. Like I love you, but I hate you too, actually, or something. So there's, the more refined you get with it, the more you'll see. And I think it'd be helpful, you guys, anybody who had questions like this, to write down your current state, how you see yourself. Like, okay, and then practice using the feelings wheel even over the week. Just practice identifying your feelings and see if you can answer some of your own questions too. Like, oh, is it really that I'm just neutral to these, or I really don't feel them, or am I cracking through? Is there some light coming through now to those feelings? I'm starting to feel stuff that I didn't realize. You know, and we'll go more into manas next week as well. We'll keep going. Vilas, did you have something?
Is it possible to have contradictory feelings at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, this happens a lot with sexual abuse. When I have clients who are sexually abused as children, they're like, physically I kind of actually like how it felt, but I know it's wrong. And they feel so ashamed to say that in the session with me, you know, but it happens when you have to work through sexual abuse. You have to hold the space for somebody to have both, to say, yeah, you can't help your physical sensation. You know, you might have liked it even though it was your father and you were 7. But at the same time, you're disgusted and you're angry and you're enraged and you feel violated. Yeah. So it's really important to give space for whatever comes up with your feelings. Feelings can't be wrong. That's one of my favorite sayings. Your feelings cannot be wrong. Thoughts, that's a different story. And actions, that's really where the problems come. But feelings, we want to honor them. Acting on them is where it's a problem, and starting to spin stories about the feelings that are not right and that get bigger and bigger, that's when we get into problems. And then we act in ways that hurt other people and hurt ourselves. But the feelings at the root, those are not wrong. And that's why therapists work with your feelings. They try to help you process what all that stuff is in there that you never got to talk about and that nobody ever got to hold the space for you to validate them and see them and accept them. Does that make sense?
So it is very much possible that we have contradictory feelings, such as, being anxious, but also liking something, for example.
Yes.
And it doesn't necessarily indicate some kind of problem also. It's just how feelings are, or is there something interesting about these kind of situations?
It's your awareness level is good if you realize that. That's a good buddhi to realize, ooh, I'm feeling mixed feeling. Because they're there. A lot of times they're mixed. So being aware of it is good. The next step is to figure out now what to do about it. How do I hold space and say it's okay to be excited and nervous, or excited and hesitant, or, but that's good if you're aware of that. Yeah, usually that's not like 100%, I'm 100%, that means sometimes when you see people who are overly confident about something, they're oftentimes, they're overly superior, or overly confident. They're oftentimes they're doing that not purposely, but to cover their insecurity or their fear. So if you're more like grounded and say, no, I'm excited, but I'm a little nervous too, that's actually probably more realistic, oftentimes. But we want to act like, no, I've got this 100%, when maybe we don't. That's a good question. Paula? I think the mic is behind you. Okay, last question real quick, and then I think Babaji's coming.
Can one have like an emotion that is so repetitive that our manas create a habit and just play without any external stimuli, and that you just feel for no reason?
Yes. Oh. Yeah. Manas doesn't do it, another part of the mind does it. Manas is just that blank screen. It can't create a pattern. It's just whatever you throw on it, it just accepts, But there's another part of the mind that makes a pattern, samskara, it makes a habit. Yeah, and we'll get into that. It's very interesting when we start seeing all the parts and how they work together, But it's a good question. That happens all the time for all of us in some way. There's a whole field of psychology called like positive psychology, where you try to make positive feelings and make a pattern proactively instead of just suffering with the negative one that keeps running in your head,
So, because you just said like there are no wrong emotions, but sometimes when there is just like mechanical habit, maybe we could be like, it's okay, but I'm not going to pay attention to you right now.
Yeah, we'll get into that. There's no wrong feelings, but what I was saying is what you do with the feelings is the problem. So the feeling you want to honor, but not paying attention, most likely that's the opposite of what you want to do. You want to pay attention and go, oh, it looks like you're like a screaming baby and you need my attention. But we'll go into that in the future. Good questions. Thank you guys very much. Haribol.